April 2019. Mombasa, Kenya, a coastal city famous for its sun, its sea, its endless tourist charm. But behind the postcard beauty, there are hidden shadows. And in one of those shadows, a young woman was found. She was lying near a petrol station, unconscious, helpless, alone. She would never speak another word. Her name? Margaret Kilelu Omollo, a daughter, a scholar, a nurse, a mother of 2 little boys. Her story should have been one of triumph, a life of education, of service, of love, of family. But instead, it became one of the most haunting mysteries in Kenya's true crime history. Because Margaret's truth died with her. How did she travel nearly 500 kilometers from Nairobi to Mombasa? Why was she found collapsed, voiceless, and unrecognizable? And why, even after her death, did the police investigation go silent? Tonight, on Unveiling-True crime, we reopen the file that others left to gather dust. This is the story of Margaret Kilelu Omollo, the woman who never spoke again. Every tragedy begins with promise, and Margaret's promise shone brighter than most. Born and raised in Kenya, Margaret was remembered as a girl who radiated kindness. Friends said she had a laugh that filled the room, a heart that lifted others, and a mind that was hungry for knowledge. Education was her escape, her pathway to something bigger. Teachers called her gifted, focused, and unstoppable. That drive carried her far, literally across continents. Margaret earned a place at Flinders University in Adelaide, Australia. For her, this was not just an opportunity. It was a mission. She wasn't only studying for herself. She carried the hopes of her family, her community, and every young Kenyan girl who dreamed of breaking barriers. But life in Australia wasn't always easy. Homesickness, cultural differences, the constant balancing act of studies and survival. Yet Margaret didn't just cope. She thrived. She became part of a vibrant Kenyan-Australian community. They celebrated victories together, leaned on each other during the tough days, and built bonds of family away from home. By the time she graduated, Margaret had not only earned her degree, she had built a reputation as someone destined to make a difference. Returning home to Kenya, Margaret stepped into her calling. She joined AmRef Health Africa, one of the continent's leading healthcare organizations. To her, nursing was not just a career. It was a way to give back, to heal, to serve those in need. Colleagues admired her patience, her compassion, and her dedication. And while her career blossomed, so too did her personal life. Margaret married Dr. Steve Omollo, a respected trichologist and CEO of the Nairobi Trichology and Hair Loss Center. Together, they were a power couple in every sense. Margaret saving lives through nursing, Steve restoring confidence and dignity to patients through his practice. Their love story grew into a family. They welcomed 2 sons, and for a time, their lives were full of joy, ambition, and promise. But life, as it so often does, dealt a cruel blow. Steve died suddenly. The details remain private, but his passing left Margaret a widow and her boys without a father. The grief was shattering. Friends described Margaret as devastated but strong, carrying herself with quiet resilience, determined to keep moving forward for the sake of her children. By late 2018, Margaret had resettled fully in Kenya. But beneath the surface of her professional dedication and motherly devotion, storms were gathering. On the morning of February 21st, 2019, Margaret left her home in Tenai Estate, Nairobi. She wore a long gray dress and a black jacket. It was about 10 a.m. She told no one where she was going. That was the last time her family saw her. When evening came and she didn't return, alarm bells rang. Margaret was not a woman to vanish. She was reliable, responsible, and deeply connected to her family. Calls to her phone went unanswered. Hours stretched into a sleepless night. The next day, panic spread. Her family launched a frantic search. Hospitals, police stations, morgues, all were checked. Nothing. WhatsApp groups buzzed with her photo and urgent messages. Missing person, Margaret Kilelu Omollo. Still, no answers. Days passed. Silence deepened. Until suddenly, nearly a week later, news came. But it wasn't for Nairobi. It was from Mombasa, over 480 kilometers from her Nairobi home. Margaret was discovered lying near a petrol station in Bamburi, Mombasa. Unconscious, alone, without identification. It was a Good Samaritan, whose identity remains vague, who found her and took her to a nearby private facility. From there, she was referred to Coast General Hospital. Doctors admitted her straight to the ICU. She was alive, but she could not speak. Scans and tests were run. Doctors considered everything: infection, intoxication, poisoning. But no official cause was ever shared. For her family, the discovery brought both relief and heartbreak. Relief that she had been found alive. Heartbreak that she was silent, trapped in a body that couldn't explain what had happened. Her loved ones clung to hope, that she would wake, that she would speak, that she would tell them everything. But that moment never came. On April 11th, 2019, after weeks of hospitalization, Margaret's condition deteriorated. She passed away. She had never spoken again. From the very beginning, the investigation was plagued by gaps. The Kadzandani police station in Mombasa logged her case after the Good Samaritan reported finding her. At the same time, Nairobi police already had her listed as missing. The two cases intersected, but did not merge into meaningful progress. How did Margaret travel nearly 500 kilometers? Did she board a bus? Take the train? Was she driven by someone? No CCTV, no ticket records, no public witnesses. Police questioned possibilities, but they gave no answers. By the time Margaret died in April, no suspects had been named. No arrests were made. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations never elevated the case beyond a missing person report. To her grieving family, it felt like abandonment. The silence of law enforcement became as painful as the silence Margaret herself carried to her grave. The case faded. Her death closed not just her life, but the investigation itself. Even today, the mystery lingers. Why Mombasa? Margaret had no known plans to travel there. Why would a widowed mother suddenly leave her children and job without explanation? How did she get there? Nairobi to Mombasa is nearly 500 kilometers. Did she travel alone? Was she coerced? What happened in those missing days? From February 21st until her discovery, her trail is completely blank. Why was there no follow-up? Why did investigators stop digging once she died? The silence around her case is deafening. Margaret's story is more than a mystery. It is a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly dreams can turn into headlines, how unanswered questions can haunt those left behind. Her two sons, who lost both parents within 6 months, are a living testimony to resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. Her family, friends, and community, both in Kenya and in Australia, continue to honor her memory. They refuse to let her story disappear into silence. For them, and for all of us, Margaret's legacy is a call to remember, a call to demand justice, a call to protect those whose voices have been taken away. Margaret Kilelu Omollo was more than a mystery. She was a scholar, a mother, a healer, and a dreamer. Her silence may never be broken, but her story must never be forgotten. Margaret's story is not over, because as we dug deeper, we uncovered hints, whispers, fragments of information that were never part of the official case file. And those fragments raise more disturbing questions than answers. How could a nurse, a woman of routine, a devoted mother, simply vanish from Nairobi and resurface 500 kilometers away? Without a phone call, without a witness, without even the faintest trace? Why did the hospital logs conflict on where she was first admitted? First she, then Mombasa, with no clear chain of transfer? Who made those decisions? And why? And most chilling of all, why did investigators walk away the moment she died? I'll tell you this much. Silence doesn't happen by accident. Silence is either enforced or bought. The more we looked into it, the more it became clear. There are pieces of this story that were never meant to see the light of day. People Margaret knew, places she was last seen, financial and travel records that don't add up, statements given by witnesses that contradict one another. Was she lured? Was she running? Or was she silenced? We can't answer those questions yet. But the trail isn't cold. Because here's what most people don't know. There are individuals close to Margaret who never spoke publicly. People who might have seen her in those missing days. And some of them are finally ready to talk. Yes, after years of silence, new voices are about to come forward. And when they do, everything we thought we knew about Margaret's final days may change. This is not just about one woman anymore. This is about justice. This is about a system that looks away when the truth becomes inconvenient. And we're not looking away. So here's what's coming. We're reopening Margaret's timeline piece by piece. We're tracking her last movements, from Tenna Estate in Nairobi to the coast of Mombasa. We're revisiting the Good Samaritan's account. We're examining the hospitals, the police files, the transportation routes. And most importantly, we're listening to the people who were ignored the first time. Because somewhere out there, the truth is waiting. And when it comes out, it will not only reshape Margaret's story, it will expose the cracks in a system that let her case die in silence. If you're watching this right now, you're already part of something bigger. You're part of a community that refuses to let her memory vanish. So do not miss what comes next. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, because in our next release, the silence will begin to break. And trust me, you do not want to miss what we've uncovered. Part 2 coming soon.